Comrades, the way Jamaica run now, it's not right. People fed up.
Welcome back, everyone. Thank you very much for supporting our channel. In these views, we will tap into another energizing and informative interview done by Portland Spice TV journalist Colin Bell with Dr. Peter Phillips. Some people, let's get into it and see what we can understand and absorb and learn morally from this conversation. So my people, leave your views and comment in the comment section below. And if you are new, you're welcome. Welcome to the space. Please like and share and subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to go over to Portland Spice TV and give Colin Bell a support in a great interview. Colin Bell, continue the great work, sir. Bless up, King.
Without any further ado, I am going to welcome Dr. Peter Phillips to Portland Spice TV. Dr. Phillips, good evening.
Good evening. How you doing?
I'm good enough, my brother. I'm good, my comrade. How are you?
I am good, thanks. I am good.
We don't see much of you these days. What have you been doing? Little backyard farming?
Well, no, I'm doing some writing from time to time, some speaking at various little events and, trying to do good work still.
Of course.
In various things. Really trying to focus on getting the country's economy growing and trying to write down some of my experiences in the political life of the country and in service to the people over 30 odd years and getting it published in some sort of way. So keeping myself active and staying alive.
So we're expecting a book soon.
Hoping so.
That sounds like a good read. Because 30 odd years in public service, Dr. Phillips. In my advertisement, you were the man of the Gleaner Man of the Year for 2015. You have served as Minister of Health, Minister of Transport and Works, Minister of National Security, Minister of Finance, Leader of the Opposition, President of the People's National Party, and I'm sure there are other roles that you have held inside the People's National Party. So a lot of service to this country, and I want to thank you for your service, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
Dr. Phillips.
Yes, man.
Go ahead, you were saying something.
No, I'm just saying that, I think that certainly for me, serving your country is the greatest calling that one could have. And it was a pleasure over all the years to be able to do my bit on behalf of the country. One of the disappointments that I have had over the years is to see now how so many people have tried to reduce political service in public life, and describe it as a negative thing. And I think that is unfortunate, because quite frankly, we need our best people to feel called, to feel free to offer themselves to work on behalf of this nation and on behalf of the upliftment of the people of the country. And when people go out and want to describe people in political life in the most negative terms, it's really doing the country a disservice. Which is not to say that there have not been political figures which have not lived up to the highest standards. But in my experience, the vast majority of the people on both sides of the fence have really gone in trying to do their best on behalf of their communities and their people. And, maybe we have allowed some bad apples along the way to spoil the reputation of the whole barrel.
So you are of the opinion that most of the people who come into public service, into politics, really meant well?
Yes.
I think so too. Dr. Phillips, over the 30 years, any regrets?
Well, I would have. I don't have any regrets. No, I don't carry regrets. I've always believed that regret is a wasted emotion. There are some things I would have liked to have had a chance to do, which I didn't get the chance to do. But then that is life, and there are things that I got the chance to do that I didn't anticipate that I would have got that chance. So I think that I don't have regrets about the process. Overall, and this is one of the things that I'm going to try to spend some time, as much as the Almighty permits me, to really understand the reasons why, as a country, we have not managed to secure a greater quality of life for the country and for the people of the country. Why we haven't done as well as some of our neighbors in the Caribbean. Why we have not done as well as other countries that entered into sovereign statehood at the same time as we did. I think we need to understand these things. I certainly would like to understand it, so that there is an opportunity to help guide the country to the extent that we can, even with just sharing what conclusions we come to, so that the next 60 odd years is better than the last 60 odd. We have countries that the famous example that people use is the Singapore example of them coming to Jamaica to look at what was then the miracle of Jamaica's growth in the 1950s and 60s, when we were growing at 6% per annum, and looking at that, and if you compare where they are now
to where we are,
per capita income, and where we are, they have outstripped us by 10 times. We are still with a per capita income of about $7,000 per person, and they are looking at close to $80,000 per person. And it's never good to compare yourself, because history is different, opportunities vary for different countries and different individuals, and it can become tiresome. But we certainly need to undertake some self-examination, and that's an area where, certainly when I was leaving university, having completed undergraduate studies in 1970, I anticipated that we would have been much further ahead as a country in solving some of the inherited problems coming out of colonial life and the kind of oppressions of colonialism, and the warped inheritances of plantation slavery and the like. Gains have been made, no doubt.
Yes.
But
would have wanted more.
One that likes to be complacent because we have made gains. I really want to know always, why are we not at the top of the class?
With the talent we have
done as well as others.
Yes. If you could put your finger on it, Dr. Phillips, what would you say was your best moment or the moment you feel the best about in your political life?
Well, I think that there are many things that struck me. I think that taking the country from the brink of economic and financial disaster and being part of that cabinet under the leadership of Comrade Simpson Miller, that really struggled hard to get a program of support from the International Monetary Fund and from the World Bank and the IDB, that really took us from the brink of disaster, because quite frankly, there was a view in Washington at that time, in the IMF. It's not a secret. It's been written about in publications like the Financial Times and others, that there were those who felt that they should make Jamaica crash.
Dr. Phillips, I am happy that you pointed out that as one of the moments that you really cherish. And that's where we want to get into. Tell us, Dr. Phillips, when you came into office after that Bruce Golding, Andrew Holness-led administration, where did you find Jamaica Economy?
Well, we were basically, to put it figuratively, on our face as a country.
On our face.
On our face. There was a huge level of distrust in the international community, particularly in the IMF at the time, and the World Bank also, and the IDB, which felt that the Jamaican administration, the one that we succeeded, the JLP administration,
right,
had basically not fulfilled the requirements of the IMF program that they had entered into in 2010, and not met their obligations either in relation to the debt exchange, the so-called JDX that they had entered into with the banks and the Jamaican bondholders locally, and that we were basically, we had taken the money, a lot of which was front-ended, meaning that they gave a lot of money at the start of the program.
Yes.
And that the government of Jamaica had not met its obligations. We were our reserves were dwindling as we got into office, because at that time we were basically closed off from the international community.
So you couldn't get the money for
borrow. We were not prepared to lend money except at exorbitant rates. Our credit ratings were very, very negative. The IDB, the European Union, the World Bank, the IMF were not prepared to transfer a single dollar
to Jamaica.
There was the only people that we were able to get international support from at the time would have been Venezuela under the Petrocaribe funds, which allowed us access to oil, and there were some small Chinese loans that were in the system at the time. But otherwise, there was nothing. And the position was, particularly among all the G7 countries, which are the main creditor countries, that is to say, the US, the UK, the EU countries, which included at that time the UK, but France, Germany, Canada, all of them, was that unless we came to an agreement with the International Monetary Fund, no money could flow. So that there were committed funds, for example, from the European Union, which we couldn't draw down. Committed funds also from the IDB, which we couldn't draw down because of the trust deficit and the bad name
Can I back up a little bit, Dr. Phillips, because you've been in there over 30 years as a senior member. The PNP administration prior to that, the GLP came in power 2007. Where did you leave the economy in 2007?
In 2007, the economy had been making steady improvement because of the having come out of the financial crisis of the late 90s. So debt to GDP was running at about little over 100% of debt to GDP. We were and trending downwards. The economy was growing. Poverty levels were down.
Somewhere about 9%.
Yes, and we were basically making progress. Now, truthfully, there was a major global crisis in 2008. And
the GLP was in power.
The GLP was in power.
Right.
And well, in the first instance, they didn't respond to it quickly. You might remember there was a point when the then Minister of Finance said that the crisis was going to be good for Jamaica.
Yes, it would benefit Jamaica. It wouldn't hurt us.
Yeah. So there was that kind of misconception. We'll put it that way.
Right.
That was there. That proved to be a foolhardy expectation, and quickly the government was compelled, in effect, to go to the International Monetary Fund and secure some support.
Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, my people, and leave a comment in the comment section below, okay? Thank you. Let's get back into it.
Which they did. But the problem was that they didn't meet the requirements. They never met the targets. There was one test that was successfully completed, and then there was no more on which the fund was prepared to pronounce that they had successfily completed the test.
So they took one IMF test and couldn't take any more.
I don't want to make out. Well, they didn't put it that way. They didn't meet the targets for didn't meet their targets for net international reserves, the primary surplus targets, the budgetary targets were not met by the government. There were purchases that were made, for example, of buses without the approval, or in fact contrary to the agreements with the fund. And so the program went off stream.
Right.
By there was no more money coming after um, early 2011, right? It was a 2010 program that
Right.
was signed in the autumn of 2010, I believe. Going just straight from memory, and it was off the rails
So as you
by
said,
2011. And so when we came in, there was a bare cupboard in effect,
nothing,
and there was a bare cupboard.
and nobody would talk to you.
Well, they spoke, but what they were saying was not comforting. They were not willing to come to agreements. We had a review done. We found out, we identified the targets that had been missed, and it took a very long time. As I said, because and the history is replete ultimately with what the reality was. We spent time in negotiations. We were willing to do the heavy lifting, but there was a strong body of opinion that basically said you cannot trust the Jamaican authorities. And
Because people,
despite our efforts,
one thing
despite
people need to understand, Dr. Phillips, is that whether GLP or PNP, it is Jamaica
it
that the
is
IMF
Jamaica,
deals with.
and when Jamaica develops a bad reputation with the international community, the entire population, not just the political leadership, but the population
Suffers.
suffers in that situation. It took a lot of diplomatic effort in which the Prime Minister got engaged, in which I myself got engaged. We had to try to mobilize influence with the people in Congress and the Black Caucus in the US Congress, and more widely afield in the administration of that period, the Obama administration and others, to make the point that, look, Jamaica is going to crash and we can't do anything more. So, because of the influence of the PNP and Comrade Simpson Miller and the PNP generally, there was a visit from a delegation of the US Congress, led by Congresswoman Maxine Waters, who visited the IMF on Christmas Eve in 2012, because we had been in discussions with people supportive of Jamaica to explain that we were prepared to do all the difficult tasks and that we would do it, and that we were not the previous administration, and that any differences of view that we had with the IMF about the things that they were requiring were not because of an unwillingness to do difficult things, but because those things were impossible to do and would have a catastrophic impact on the Jamaican economy. So after, I think they were able to persuade the managing director of the fund, who at the time was Christine Lagarde, about the seriousness of purpose that we had, and that we proceeded then to get a program which was approved in May of 2013. And we proceeded with that program, and one of your question was, what area of satisfaction. I was satisfied that we had met, by the time the government demitted office, we had met every single obligation that we had signed to under the program, and in effect had rescued Jamaica's reputation, Jamaica's name. It was a difficult program, but it's an important thing for us to understand as a country. Because
Dr. Phillips, just a minute. Styles FM, we're taking a break on Styles FM and on Caribbean Radio. We are continuing here on Portland Spice TV. So Styles FM, when you come back from the break, you just join us. Caribbean Radio, you do the same thing. You're listening to the former Minister of Finance and the former opposition leader, still member of Parliament, Dr. Peter David Phillips, one of the persons who really rescued Jamaica, because as he said earlier, when the PNP came into office in 2011, or was it 2012? 2011, I think.
Well, we won the election in 2011. The government was sworn in 2012 in
right.
January.
Jamaica was on its face. The international market would not talk to us. We were locked out. We couldn't get no money from the IMF. All the multilaterals, IMF, IDB, the G7
European
countries.
Union, absolutely, all of
wouldn't lend us any money. But before we go deep into it, Dr. Phillips, how do you feel now when you hear people on the political platform saying that they are the ones who rescued Jamaica in 2016?
Well, you know, I recognize that, well, there was no rescue, and they know that. There are other occasions they have spoken differently. They are the same.
Well, I'll tell you something, Dr. Phillips. I don't know if you heard the Prime Minister this evening.
No.
He did give you credit this evening, finally.
And he has done it before on different occasions. But, you know, I really want to say it's not about, we never did this, as I'm saying, never do it for the likes. Did it for the love of country.
Yes.
And because it had to be done. Right? Now, the fact of the matter is that if you ask me about the things I appreciated about time in political life, and I mentioned one, there are others, but we don't have to focus now on that. But if you ask me about the negatives, one of the negatives I think is that our political culture is too tribalistic. It has tended more to divide us as a people, to misrepresent the history of our struggles, and therefore to prevent us from understanding some of the real challenges that we will have to deal with as a people. You know, remember, there used to be a refrain that that when we were, so to speak, meeting the targets that we had signed Jamaica to, there was a guy that said, there was the former Minister of Finance said that we are only passing the IMF test, but we're not passing the people's test, as if to suggest that there was an alternative for a bankrupt country.
And he was the one who didn't pass the IMF test that brought us on our face.
And, because one thing, just like when you become an adult, and as a young man growing up, you face it, I face it, our children face it, and everybody. There comes a point when well, Look here, the first responsibility of adulthood is the ability to manage your own finances. If you can't manage your own finances, everybody takes step with you. Bank will come seize your house. Companies will come and take away your TV from your neighbors, take away your bed out of your house
Take away your
because
car.
you're not managing your finances.
Yes.
As it is for the individual, so it is for a country. The first responsibility of independence ultimately is that you have to be able to manage your finances. It is true that there's a lot of injustice in the world. It is true for the individual and it is true for the country. The world is very unequal. Many of small countries get battered by the man. We have to struggle to change those global structures, those international structures, while at the same time we can't be irresponsible about how we manage our affairs, precisely because we are small and don't have a whole lot of power in the world community of nations. Just like the individual who said, boy, if I had access to better schooling, or that my parents had
I'm gonna get a start.
money or little things to give me, could have given me a better start, life would have different. That may be so, but it can't justify thieving people things. It can't justify borrowing and not repaying. It can't justify all those things. You have to try and see how you can manage to organize your business, become more enterprising, go study harder, get a better job, whatever it is, so that you can step up. It is the responsibility of governments to create this space so people can step up more easily in life.
Let me just welcome back those listeners on Styles FM and on Caribbean Radio HD over there in New York and Florida. Welcome back to the Colin Bell Show. We're talking to former Minister of Finance, Dr. Peter Phillips. And one of the reasons why we're talking to him this evening is really to set the record straight about 2012 to 2016, an era that the present administration don't speak about. They don't speak about 2007 to 2011 either, because those are the times when the GLP crashed the economy, the PNP rescued Jamaica. As Dr. Peter Phillips said, the country was flat on its face when they came in power. Dr. Phillips, you had to put a number of things into place so as to ensure that Jamaica never get to that place again. Tell us about some of those things that you put in place.
Well, I think the first thing was to recover our reputation and to meet our obligations. And there was, the programs included a lot of efforts at tax reform and customs reform and things like that. But more importantly, and again in keeping with a long tradition within the PNP, we embarked upon what I call an exercise in the politics of participation. We set up what was called EPOC, Economic Program Oversight Committee. And we basically said to the other stakeholders, the bankers and the PSOJ, the trade unions and civil society, because that we were prepared to open the books, to be absolutely transparent about the decisions that we were taking, and that they could appoint a chairman that would sit jointly with the chairman on the government side, which was the governor of the Bank of Jamaica, and that They were free to talk publicly and go and explain to the public if we were being irresponsible about any aspect of the program. And that epoch model is a model that many other countries in the Caribbean and across the world have in fact embarked upon, and have helped us make our and has helped buy credibility for the government at that time. And I think that it is the real test of how we never get to that point again is going to be found really in the challenge that still remains, and I dare say one which was we were further ahead in managing when we demitted office in 2016, and that is the question of growth, economic growth, because quite frankly we needed to have a Jamaica can only breathe easily as far as our economic future is concerned if we are going to get greater levels of economic growth. Over the past 8 quarters, 2 years, we have not had any growth in the economy. Even before the government, likes to make a lot about the pandemic, and the pandemic did have a negative effect on the economy, no doubt about it.
Okay, my people, that's all for now. Give thanks for your time and your support. What is your views on all of this? Leave your comment in the comment section below. Yes, my people, and if you are new here, welcome to the space. Please subscribe to the channel to help the channel grow. I'm out for now, my people. Art of love.